Magic Mike Johnson. Is that what we're going to call him?
I guess so.
Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz has praised the new Speaker of the House after his shocking ascent to the podium yesterday. Let's listen in.
He is sharp. He will be as respected in the halls of our, in the homes of our most meaningful, righteous, and patriotic donors as he will at the rallies with our most enthusiastic and meaningful activists. It is going to be a great moment for the House. And you know what? At the very end, when some people didn't know if they could still even bring back McCarthy, a few of them just left the room and didn't vote. And the swamp is on the run. MAGA is ascendant. And if you don't think that moving from Kevin McCarthy to MAGA Mike Johnson shows the ascendance of this movement and where the power in the Republican Party truly lies, then you're not paying attention. But they are crying, they are hand-wringing and bedwetting over on K Street because we have an honorable, righteous man who is about to take this position. He's going to do great things for the country.
I mean, look, I think there's some truth to Matt Gaetz saying here, we got a win. We replaced McCarthy with a speaker who seems to be, it remains to be seen, I guess, but is likely much more conservative, much more Trumpy, is more in line with what Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan, that faction wants. So whether that's going to result in any substantive difference remains to be seen, but I see why Matt Gaetz is feeling pretty proud of himself. He successfully did the thing. I mean, he did what he set out to do.
There is definitely an argument for it. And again...
Oh, and also he's right. Sorry to interrupt. He's also right about the bedwetting going on among more establishment conservative types of like never Trump Republican people. I've been seeing their reaction. Their reaction is like, yep, Matt Gaetz won. And that's bad from their perspective. But they totally agree that this was Matt Gaetz running the show, taking things over, got what he wanted. And then they also think that's a crisis for our democracy.
That's definitely an argument if you were invested in the... can Matt Gaetz control the speaker? Can the Freedom Caucus put someone more MAGA in the spot than Kevin McCarthy? Sure, if that was the goal, then you win. It is a little disappointing, I think, to hear the focus be on that than some of the agenda items that Matt Gaetz purported to care about so much when he was making speeches on the House floor about corruption in the swamp, et cetera. I'm not hearing the argument for why Magic Mike here is a less establishment actor when it comes to the economics, when it comes to bringing a floor vote on something like ending insider trading in the House. The draining the swamp was actually kind of full-blown corruption issues that Matt Gaetz was kind of throwing up when people were attacking him and accusing him of being self-aggrandizing. I would like to see more evidence that Mike Johnson is invested in actually draining the swamp as opposed to just being pro-Trump. Being pro-Trump is not a policy.
Yeah. Right. And we just have to find out whether any of that happens. Obviously, the insider trading thing is just so frustrating. That kind of corruption stuff, so frustrating because it's so obvious the American people in all political traditions want that kind of thing ended. And why can't it happen? Oh, right, because the people in charge of ending it are the ones who are enriching themselves from it. So
now, what's really interesting is that as the voting was going on earlier this week, at least one of the other candidates got dinged for, one, not voting to, protect Trump, going against Trump during all of the election stealing stuff around 1/6, and also for being pro-gay marriage. Now, the new clip has emerged about Mike Johnson, in which he does something, which, again, I think is a good thing, but if the Republicans' attitude toward the other speaker candidates is any indication, might get him into a little hot water. Let's roll this clip.
And I've thought often through all these ordeals over the last couple of weeks about the difference in the experiences between my two 14-year-old sons, Michael being a Black American and Jack being white, Caucasian. They have different challenges. My son, Jack, has an easier path. He just does. The interesting thing about both of these kids, Michael and Jack, is they're both handsome, articulate, really talented kids, gifted by God to do lots of things. But the reality is, and no one can tell me otherwise, my son Michael had a harder time than my son Jack is going to have simply because of the color of his skin. And that's a reality. It's an uncomfortable, painful one to acknowledge, but people have to recognize that's a fact.
What should we do about that?
I think that we really do need systematic change. I think we need transformative solutions. I think we're at a moment where we can begin to do more to form that more perfect union, as it says in the first line of the Constitution.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene objected to Emmer because he supported the gay marriage bill, et cetera. Do you think that Johnson's going to get in trouble for saying that black people and white people have different challenges and acknowledging that racism is real?
I mean, no, I think that was fine. I mean,
I think it was fine too,
He wasn't calling for a specific policy that might be objectionable. He was acknowledging that there are still lingering effects of racism in our society, and your average black and white person can have different experiences and can be are treated differently, and there are a lot of ways in which an average black person could experience harmful effects because of that. I don't know,
Robby, that sounds pretty woke to me. I thought that acknowledging those kinds of differences was racism in and of itself, that we shouldn't teach people in school that they might be treated differently because of their race, that you don't want to make white people feel guilty
that we shouldn't treat people because of their race that they are differently. That's the...
No, nobody's... That is actual racism, saying that you are different and you are less than because you're black is racism, and that has never been on the agenda. If anybody, even the most DEI-ish thing that I think is kind of ridiculous and not really targeted to doing anything useful, that has never been the argument. The argument is that society is unequal, that there are disparities in society, there's institutional racism. All of the words that I'm saying are words that the anti-woke Christopher Rufo crowd have been objecting to. That is what CRT is.
I hate to always go back to this example because I do rely on it often, but it's just the best example of what I'm talking about and what I think the best, most informed and most good faith actors trying to eliminate what they've termed as CRT. I don't know if that's the right word for it.
It's not what it is.
The aspects of white supremacy document, which does come up in educational settings and says white people are hardworking, black people are different. And white people are on time, black people are different.
Is that what's being taught in the Florida University that Ron DeSantis and Christopher Rufo commandeered and caused like 25% of students and staff to leave?
I don't agree with that action at all. But that document is the kind of racist
funding for African American studies in the state of Florida.
That should be that. Well, now you're just switching to something else. I'm saying that's the bad thing.
Wait a minute.
That's what the good faith critics of what they've termed CRT are trying to eliminate.
Okay, I don't want to be accused of switching, so let's talk about it. Ron DeSantis, is he or is he not a face of this wokeness movement? Has he not made wokeness a core part of his own?
You can go to Reason.com, the magazine I also write for, and I wrote an article yesterday criticizing Ron DeSantis specifically for shutting down a Palestinian student group.
So you agree with me that Ron DeSantis has made wokeness a linchpin of his campaign and has been in many ways the face of wokeness, right? Mm-hmm. And that he appointed Christopher Rufo to some position at this university. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but policy-driven,
Christopher Rufo is no fan of mine. He has said repeatedly that libertarianism is the thing he hates most.
Okay,
I don't claim him as one of my...
In the course of all of that, they stopped federal funding to African American studies programs at state-funded schools in Florida and eliminated all of those kind of identity group studies from that university, that specific university where Christopher Rufo was appointed in Florida, right? Mm-hmm. So you would agree with me that is much more expansive than objecting to one document that was used in some niche places in the United States of America for DEI purposes, in a HR DEI employment context,
It shows up all over the place. It shows up in...
Okay, let's say it happened in 1,000 workplaces across America. Would you agree that what is under attack is much more than one document that we can all agree is bad?
I don't need to rank these things. I'm opposed to both.
I'm ranking them. I'm saying that the attack on African American studies is much more broad than this one DEI document that you're using as an example.
The attack on African American studies in Florida?
And across the country. Yes.
How is it under attack across the country?
By school boards, et cetera, who are trying to exclude CRT, which is Christopher Rufo's own statement. The objective has been to make CRT, a word and a statement that is amorphous and people can map onto, synonymous for any teaching of the continued disparities that black people and other groups face in the United States of America that have policy implications.
Right. To restate, the good faith actors on this subject are pointing to DEI instruction in workplaces and many educational settings that treat black and white people. No.
Okay, so why are we talking about good faith actors? We're talking about Christopher Rufo, the Republican Party.
No, you brought him up. You said.
Yeah, I am talking. I'll correct it. I am talking about everybody. This wokeness, the leading president, the second and most leading candidate for the Republican Party, also Vivek Ramaswamy, have been talking about wokeness in a much more expansive way than that one DEI document. So that's why this is germane. To those people who are the leading voices critiquing wokeness in the United States of America and the Republican Party, saying just the obvious, like this guy said, that I have a black son, I have a white son, I'm raising them the same in the same house, and I can observe the different challenges that my black son is facing in the world because of racism than what my white son is facing, would not be a framing that is accepted by that crowd, by the Christopher Rufo crowd.
I'm just saying, pretending that, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but a lot of liberals do this, to talk about this attack on CRT like there's no legitimacy to it whatsoever, that there's nothing wrong with DEI. I mean, what's their Robin DiAngelo still gets booked to speak at conferences and educational seminars and so forth, putting forth these utterly discredited, harmful, and at their root racist ideas that shouldn't be taken seriously by anyone, but they are.
Rufo describes a strategy to oppose critical race theory as intentionally using the term to conflate various race-related ideas in order to create a negative association. Rufo said, quote, "We will eventually turn CRT toxic as we put all of the various cultural insanities under that brand category."
If you Google my name and Christopher Rufo, you'll see multiple times where I have
that, Robby. You've been so good on this. You've been so good on this, but I just wanted to have a little conversation about people who haven't been good on it. So I want to give you all the credit in the world, but this one just isn't about you personally. It's about whether or not Johnson, by saying something anodyne and normal that would have been the completely normal thing to say like 15 years ago, might find himself in the crosshairs of the Republican Party once they find out that he doesn't think that any mention of race is CRT and therefore bad, which, as I just read, was Christopher Rufo's
But no one
objective.
has actually criticized him for it.
Well, they haven't found it yet, but maybe once they see this clip, they'll realize how virulent and unpleasant this man really is.
Oh boy, more rising right after this.